no doubt candidates will be talking about this epidemic. What is there a federal solution to this other than
you have to
funding?
You have to change those tons of funding. There's funding. They don't. Only 10% of drug addicts get treatment. Okay, not because they don't have access. So recently they did a study and they talked to that 90%. Why aren't you getting treatment? 80% of the 90% said, "Why? I don't want treatment. Fuck you."
Right. Which is precisely what I would have said also.
Right.
You know, in fact,
and so you have to create some motivation somehow or they're going to die.
Right.
And I would argue that we have to have very strong legal sticks and carrots in place.
I suspect we do. When one of the doctor's offices eventually caught on, and this incredibly lovely office manager said, "Hey, listen, we think you have a problem, and we can't continue to treat you." I was so offended. I put on such a show of outrage that you would even suggest I have a problem.
So they're not used to dealing with that. To me, I would have just gone, "Oh my God, you're so funny! Give me a break," But they get panicky and think they made a mistake and won't confront the next guy.
Right. Right. And listen, and to their credit, they cut me off. They did. But
That's not the way to deal. You don't cut you off. Let's bring you in and have you treated. You're not a bad patient. They did it. He strung you out.
It's and so but I could flip open the yellow pages. That happened back then, and there was a whole section, a whole page of
you go from one to the next
of pain doctors, and I knew the names of the pain doctors in the tri-state area, like some people know the starting lineups of their hometown baseball teams. I knew who was where, who was affiliated with which hospital, who was likely to prescribe.
Yeah.
I mean, it became my occupation.
Mm-hmm.
It really did.
I get it. Did you keep your job through all this?
I did keep my job through all this, which is just extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be honest. Mm-hmm. And I had it until they closed details in 2015. And I'll tell you this. The pills didn't make me more productive. They didn't give me more energy. They didn't make me more creative. My ideas were not better my life improved dramatically. My relationships with people improved dramatically. I was present in my life, really, probably, if I'm being honest, for the first time, right? And
did you have some trauma as a kid or something?
You know, I didn't. I think I never felt, and this is you hear this commonly amongst addicts, alcoholics. I never felt like I fit in. I felt like everybody had been given a manual, boys, girls, men, women, on how to go through life, and when they got to me, they had run out of manuals. And I just was never comfortable in my own skin, and I never felt like one of the guys, ever. Yeah. And so I escaped through magic. I was really into magic. Actually, magic factors heavily in my story. David Copperfield factors heavily in my story. So I would hide in
your
my
recovery.
Yes. So
wow.
I grew up just being a total magic nerd.
Did you go visit him in Vegas in that storefront? With the
museum? I've been there. And so I would watch his specials. He had this CBS special every year that I would tape on VHS. And I would watch it over and over and over again, trying to figure out how he did this, that, and the other thing. I eventually had a chance to interview him when I was working for W Magazine, and then meet him again when I was at Details, and we developed a friendship. And when my pregnant wife threw me out of the house, when I came back to New York, I went to David Copperfield and I said, I need a place to stay. And I'm an addict, and David was incredibly generous and kind. And so I got sober really in his house in New York. And that was that, you know. So, so no trauma, but I just never felt like I fit in. Yeah. And of course, my brother was the star athlete, the star student, was incredibly popular with girls. My closest friend, the same thing. I always felt like just this. I was the buddy. I was I was Cameron from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I was like every character ever played by Anthony Michael Hall. I was the guy that the girls would complain to about their problems with the guys and hug me before going off with the other guy.
Right.
And so I just, isolated and found my way into this really extraordinary career, which I'm grateful for. But really had a mask on and, hid, in a bottle of pills. And it's a pretty common, I had there are some uncommon elements to my story.
Yeah.
But it is a very
It is
common.
a story of our time, for sure.
It really is. It really is.
Think about Prince and anybody else you can think of that died of exactly what you went through. They just died of it.
I know.
And it was always the same, opiate benzo, opiate benzo, opiate benzo. Always.
I mean, it's extraordinary, And
So
so
the benzos are still being overprescribed. Still.
So what gives?
They don't understand addiction. My peers do not understand addiction. They don't get it. You have to see it a lot and really understand it. And one of the key core problems is my peers are offended by the idea when I approach them on this notion that they shouldn't believe their patients. How I have the foundation of my relationship is trust.
Right.
I have to trust my patients. No, you have to figure out what's going on.
Right.
And do the right thing for your patient. They're lying all the time, and addicts lie all the time.
Listen, I mean,
constantly.
Lying is the number one side effect.
If my patients didn't lie, their diagnosis would be in question.
Right.
It's not an addict if they're not lying to you.
I lied my ass off,
Yeah.
and
so all the research is built on reporting from the patients. All the addiction research. Yeah. Or unobserved urines. Forget it. Or if they don't show up, well, they're lost to follow-up, not they're using.
Right.
Unbelievable. So all the research is flawed. No one is trained properly on how to actually manage the person. Your buprenorphine prescriber, there's lots of those out there.
Yeah.
They don't understand addiction.
Someone told me very recently that throughout the sort of the years of education that it takes to become an MD, so whatever that is, whatever undergraduate courses you're taking,
12 years.
12 years, right?
That's a short.
Within that sort of short 12-year period. Yeah. There's really only a few hours dedicated to.
I'm an addictionologist. The only training I had was we visited an AA meeting, which I didn't understand what was even happening at a so-called rehab unit, which is actually a stroke rehab unit in Downey.
Okay, so
that was the only training,
and that's an hour. AA meetings are typically
we
weren't
even there an hour. We were there half an hour.
Okay.
That was and we talked to an alcoholic maybe for 10 minutes.
So what's wrong with that picture?
And by the way, the whole time working at a county hospital, took care of tons of alcoholics and heroin addicts, and did not address their underlying disease at all. We were just dealing with all the medical problems that they caused. Never dealt with the underlying condition.
Right.
Ever.
I think
Except to tell them to stop using.
Right. Yeah, sure. Stop doing
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Get yourself together. One of the reasons that I wanted to write this book was to help in any way that I could with my story to destigmatize.
Once you go back to the pain doctors that were doing all the prescribing and go, you don't know what addiction is.
Right.
And I was in your midst for years. I hope you're doing better with it.
Yeah,
They never learn because no one ever comes back.
I eventually called all of them and said, hey, I'm a drug addict.
Don't prescribe to me.
Don't prescribe me any medication.
That's different than going back going, listen, I'm here to try to teach you when you don't believe your patient. I lied to you for 5 years.
I'll send them my book, if nothing else. But it was the hard part for me was not getting more. The hard part for me was stopping but getting them. Listen, there were challenges for sure, but getting them was it's certainly, at least in New York City back in the early 2000s.
Most people give up and switch to heroin. It's cheaper, easier.
Yeah.
It's all over the place.
I actually went one night here in L.A. to try to get heroin. I've never done heroin, but I tried one night to get it. And this was the night that I met the rock star and that limo driver. And we dropped the rock star off behind his gate. And I said to the limo driver, hey, the magazine that I work for is doing a story on, well-known celebrities getting drugs. Like, where would they go? Can you show me one of these areas? Is there like a Skid Row? Like, or is that like a thing that you just hear about? And he took me to some pretty seedy area, and I got out of the car, and he said, you sure you want to walk around? And I went and asked for heroin from some guys that approached me saying, hey, what's up? And I was chased away. Either they thought I was a cop or whatever it was. I got chased back to the car, and that's when the limo driver said to me, hey, man, what are you looking for? And initially I was like, dude, just take me to my hotel. And he persisted, and I told him, and he said, I got you. So I came this close to doing heroin.
Crazy. Talk about recovery for the last couple of minutes.
Recovery is as much a priority for me now as the drugs were when I was active.
Has to be a little more.
Listen,
a little more because it feels better.
It feels much better, but I think I put as much energy into the recovery as I did into the drugs, and I put a lot of energy into the drugs.
Yeah.
My life is radically different now. I'm a dad. I have 3 beautiful boys. They have only ever known me as a sober man, which is a blessing because I spend a lot of time in meetings. I still go to meetings sometimes 3-4 times a week. Right. And you hear stories in these meetings of people trying to repair broken relationships with their kids. It's heartbreaking. So I really, that's a blessing for me.
Any, are you sponsoring other people?
I am.
Yeah.
I have sponsees. I have a sponsor. I work the steps.
That's great.
I own my shit. I'm present for my life. But listen, as they say, like, we're not saints, right? Like, I can still be irritable. I can still be a dick. But when I am, I recognize it very quickly, sometimes immediately, and I immediately apologize. Like, hey, you know what? I'm sorry I spoke to you that way, or like whatever. I'm just having a bad day, or whatever it is. I know how to self-diagnose. Like, hey, why did I just snap at one of my kids? Or why did I just grow irritable with this person or that person? And I own my stuff, So for me, my recovery is incredibly important. The meetings are incredibly important. The fellowship of the 12-step program is incredibly important.
And now there's evidence that 12-step, finally we have evidence basis for 12-step that's as effective or more than any other form of treatment, especially when abstinence is your goal.
And abstinence was my goal and remains my goal. And, there's a discernible, very noticeable difference that I can detect within myself. And I suspect others might be able to detect in me if I miss meetings for a couple of days. I just am a little bit more on edge. And it's not that I'm going to reach for a bottle of pills and grab them. It's that could happen, right? It's a daily reprieve, but it becomes behavioral. And so I can tell, like, hey, like, I'm a little off, or why am I being a dick, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so recovery is everything. Without my recovery, I don't have anything else in my life.
Right.
I do a gratitude list with a bunch of guys in sobriety. It's done over email. We call it the reply all list. And it's meant to be done daily. None of us really do it daily, but we have good sort of spurts where we're all sort of in it. And my sobriety is number 1 on that list every time, because without it, nothing else on that list matters.
Great. You've said it all, as Stern would say. You've said it all. Gary, any questions? You get the story?
No, it's a wild story. I wish
story.
I hadn't heard one like it so many times.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's great. That's awesome that you were able to get past it and Congratulations, man.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
The book is available now based on when this will air. I'm not sure if we highlighted that, but this is going to come out and the book will have dropped yesterday.
As Needed for Pain, a memoir of addiction. Get the details of what we sketched over today. And if you know anyone struggling or a family member of anyone in and around these conditions,